listening to the Savvy Musician Show with Leah McHenry, and this is your secret weapon for success in the new music industry. Hey, welcome to the show, everyone. I'm so glad that you tuned in today. I have a special guest. His name is John B., and he's kind of a behind the scenes guy. I've been interviewing a lot of behind the scenes people lately because they're so important. And I feel like they have an integral understanding of the music industry from an angle that a lot of us musicians sometimes don't appreciate, sometimes we don't recognize, and they just have a keen sense of wisdom and insight that I think is so valuable. So I want to introduce John B. Now his name is John B. Webster, and everyone calls him John B. And he's an accomplished tour set designer and builder, and has done tour production management with bands and musicians such as the Tragically Hip, Katie Lang, Diana Krall, Joni Mitchell, Bare Naked Ladies, and the Tenors. He's got a ton of experience, a ton of wisdom, and I can't wait to talk to him today. Thank you so much for being on the show.
You're welcome, Leah. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. Can you just give us a little background as to what do you currently do and how did you get into all of this?
Yeah, well, long story, but
give us
what I do now is I still build sets and activations for corporate clients. I've moved away from the music industry. Recently, I wasn't particularly doing more design. I was doing more of the tour logistics, production management, and that's what I did for the Tenors. The last couple of tours, in fact, I organized the tour, but I didn't go out on it. It was something I was calling myself a tour architect. So getting all the pieces together for theater-sized tour to tour North America and hopefully do well.
Okay, that's really cool. So how did you end up working with all these famous bands and artists?
Like most things, it was through some friends that I knew. At the time, I was more involved in doing international conferences and technical production for those. And then I met up with a very good friend of mine, Grant Mackery, and his wife, Darlene. And Grant at the time was working for Katie Lang. And through him, he had me work on a side project with an artist out of the 80s by the name of Jane Sibrey out of Toronto. Canadians might recognize the name. I don't know if anyone else will. And then through that, the opportunity arose for me to organize a bunch of audiovisual for Jane. And then when she was in Vancouver, where I live, go and set up the stuff at the venue. And that was sort of my first taste of doing sort of a larger production. Before that, there was friends of mine, a band in Vancouver called Spirit of the West, sort of folk, pop, Gaelic sort of stuff that I would help them set up and tear down their stage because I was seeing one of the band members at that time.
Okay, cool. So it's always, just through connections and just kind of the natural way of how things go. So that's cool.
Yeah, it's the networking. I mean, there's always something to be said about networking. It's the way most of us communicate and get along, and it's the referrals you make. You know, I've spent most of my life very carefully trying not to burn any bridge whatsoever because you just never know when that'll lead to a different opportunity for you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's really important to not burn bridges whenever possible and to just keep those connections open. Like you said, like try to make friends wherever you go and keep those communications open. So yeah, it's very interesting because I think a lot of people want to know, okay, like let's deal with, me or an artist like me who's built up a following and they want to do a tour. And I'm particularly interested in your experience in set design because of how complex that seems to be. That seems like a huge mountain to climb. When I go, like, how do you first of all develop the idea, like the vision for the visuals and what that's all going to look like? Where do you begin? Do you just start drawing things out on paper, or like what's the first step?
No, normally it's engendered in a meeting with the artists, the band members, etc., and just talking through them. What do they envision? What's their thoughts around this tour? I mean, most of them of course, are to promote their latest, album or singles or whatever they're trying to promote with their tour. And then we start discussing, well, what are their influences about these songs, etc., and try and make it about the music in a lot of ways. And then that's good for some people. Other people, they want it to reflect their broader idea of who they are, what they're trying to promote. There's no wrong answer here. It's whatever works for them for that tour is the best I can describe it. Then through that meeting, I'm normally sketching something, saying, hey, here's an idea. What about this? And we start down that road, spitballing ideas, tossing stuff in, tossing stuff out. And then I'd go away and I'd actually do up some drawings, normally 3D CAD based, so that it reflects reality, and present one or two ideas back to the band and then go from there. Once again, ideas will be added in, tossed out, whatever. And a lot of that depends on how much time we have before they actually have to do their first show.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. So I have a couple of questions. Like these drawings, you said you're doing them up in like a 3D. Is this some kind of a software that you're using to kind of draw this up?
Normally I use Vectorworks, which is a professional CAD program that is invaluable to me because I need to know that things are going to fit into whatever theaters, etc. Once we get past concept, normally we get from the agents what venues they're playing. And then from there, I take their technical specs and make sure what I'm building and the vision that the band or the performer and I have works for all the venues.
Yeah, that's
super
good.
Important. That doesn't happen a lot. An example is one time I was doing a backdrop for the Stereophonics. They had a backdrop. I had to reconfigure the whole thing because it wasn't working for more than half the venues they were in.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah, it was just too large and their logo was too low. So it ended up being behind the amp racks. So it just, they were not so thrilled about that one. But
yeah. So I was thinking about this too. Like when I go to see bands, I love going to concerts. And I was thinking like, there's this one band I really love, Nightwish. They're a European symphonic metal band. And, in some venues, like they're doing these huge productions with like pyro and everything. But then when they come over here to do their North American tour, they couldn't do any of that. And I was thinking through the logistics of, man, like that must be tough trying to plan this beautiful like experience that's going to work in all the venues you're playing. And so just what you'd have to take into consideration to make that work.
Yeah, well, and with that too, there's other considerations about basically, are you playing clubs? Are you playing larger clubs? Are you playing soft seat theaters? Are you playing small B-market arenas? Or are you playing full-sized arenas and into stadiums? I've had tours with bands like the Tragically Hip where we actually made two sets because once they crossed the Canadian border into the US, the size of venues they were playing full-sized arenas in Canada for multiple dates. And then they go across the border into the United States and they'd be playing clubs and soft seat theaters. So we had to extrapolate on our big set and take pieces of it and reconfigure them for the smaller venues. Yeah, but there was, throughout the 90s, I had several bands that were playing in the small club to soft seat theater things. And I came up with a very convertible idea, which was banners that were about 4 feet wide by 6 feet tall that had their own ground support system with them. And I would normally make 4 or 5 of these things. They would all collapse down into, literally, it was a ski bag that they could throw into a bus bay or the back of the van with ease. Any one of the band members could put it up, or their sound tech or whatever. It made it really easy, and it was super convertible. They could put up 2 banners in smaller places. They could put up all 4. they could take two of them, and they were telling me they were putting them behind their merch table and it was a really great way of doing it because of the convertibility, and it really put their stamp on every venue they were in. Well, that's the feedback that I was getting. So it was a very popular way of going about it at that point. Right now, we're literally talking about pop-up banners in a lot of ways. They're just a little bit larger than the ones you would get for like a store advertisement or something like that.
I'm sure people listening right now are going, oh my gosh, that's a great idea. How do I get one of these for my band?
Well, it's a lot easier than when I was doing it back in the 90s because digital printing has evolved exponentially since. So literally, they can take their artwork and give it to a printer, a large format printer company. Most signage companies, etc., will have the ability to do these. There's another place called, I believe it's called Displays to Go, where they can get it online. And literally, they ship you a box, and there it is. There are a ton of options in this now. And it's up to each individual to decide what meets their price point and is doable for them. But with digital printing, you can have whatever colorful artwork you want, and it'll work perfectly.
Awesome.
And probably only take you 2 minutes to set up.
Beautiful. I think that's what people would be looking for, ease and and versatility. So you can, like you said, like put it behind a merch booth or wherever you are playing and just have that stamp of your brand is right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's easier than people think because,
really cool.
I think you can get away with $1,000 or less and set yourself up for a couple of these banners. So it would be easily an under $5,000 solution.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's doable. So I have a question for you about atmosphere. If you were planning something for a band and let's say they had a limited budget, what's one of the most essential ingredients in, stage production that is going to create a memorable atmosphere for the fans?
Well, putting their stamp on the surroundings, and hence the banner idea. Number 2 is taking it outside the ordinary. I did this one tour where literally we took a bunch of lights and we shined it down onto crinkly silver mylar foil that was behind the amp line or the back line. And from the angle that we were doing it, it would shine up and it would be like sort of like northern lights or lightning or whatever, depending on what colors you hit it with. It could all go in time to the music. And it was an absolutely virtually free way of doing it. Like it's literally space blankets. Those silver mylar emergency blanket things?
Yeah, I'm thinking like camping or like emergency. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's those things. The other one that we used a lot of that would just roll up and go away was screen door mesh. And it takes light like nobody's business. But if you don't shine anything on it, it's transparent against a black backdrop.
And what does it look like when you shine lights on it?
It looks like it'll take whatever color you shine on it. So if your lighting is pink, all of a sudden these panels are pink. And then what it does is it sets up for every song to have its own emotional impact, because we all understand the emotional power behind colors.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So the visual aspect and the colors, so you just think like that would make some of the most meaningful impact on a limited budget is like colors, and then obviously having some kind of banner with your stamp on it. And I love that screen idea. I mean, that's got to be really cheap to find.
Oh, it's a Home Depot solution. Yeah.
That's so cool.
You can buy it in rolls. And then all you do is at the top, you either clip it on with spring clamps to a pipe or something to that effect. Normally, you can hand it to the lighting guy in whatever place you're playing, because initially you're not going to be able to go out there and have your own technicians with you unless, your partner is a sound technician or something like that, because it would be prohibitive for the people starting out to do that. So you have to rely a little bit on the folks in the venue and winning them over to give you the better show, because some guys are there for the union paycheck and they don't really want to go out of their comfort zone. They're just going to press a couple of buttons and change the look throughout the thing. And then other people care about their job and have fun with it, and they want to create something that shows you in, pardon the pun, your best light.
Yeah, definitely. Outside of banners and cool and Home Depot solutions to lighting effects, is there anything else that really makes an impact on the overall like ambience and atmosphere? Like I'm thinking like fog machines or something like that.
Throughout, one of the best uses is hazing the room. So all your lighting beam looks become visible to the audience. Now, there are hypoallergenic fog fluids for the hazers that you can get. They're just as ubiquitous as the oil product. Stay away from the oil product. It hurts your lungs, especially if you're exposed to it for a long period of time. Bands like the Tenors, they're very concerned with their vocals, and they should be. And to that end, we would always make sure that we had the hypoallergenic fog juice that you plug into the machine and let roll. You can't, in any musical environment, you just about never can have too much haze. It's not fog, it's haze. The difference is it suspends in the air a bit more, and it just helps reflect to the eye the light that's going through the air so that you get that bigger look to your stage.
Yeah, that's awesome. I recently took my kids to see Trans-Siberian Orchestra. We love going to them every year.
Yeah.
They do a ton of that stuff.
I believe one of my old friends, Dan, may still be their lighting director.
Oh, and of course their light shows are spectacular in this stadium, and then the lasers. Oh my goodness. Mm-hmm. Like it's like the perfect thing if you're ADD. You just go in there and you can never get bored. There's always like something going on, whether pyro's happening or there's like, lasers beaming around or something coming up out of the stage. It's just like, for me, it's like the ultimate entertainment. It's so just, and the attention to detail on every second of the concert for me is really, it's a beautiful thing. And I just can't imagine the work that goes into it all year round just to prepare for each show that they do.
Very much so. And you've picked out a prime example of a band that really puts a lot into what they're trying to promote, right? With the lasers, with everything. It's all choreographed. It's they will spend a week or 2 weeks in production rehearsals going over cue by cue. Now, this was the next thing I was going to talk about, which was your lighting direction. And if you have, it's tougher for the people starting out because they're not necessarily going to have a lighting guy with them that, is intrinsically involved in hitting the cue. So, you're hitting a big chord and the lights change to that chord, right? That sort of impact just with color change can't be overstated enough. This is the stuff that actually really gives you that memorable experience because the lighting has to correspond to the music.
Definitely. And like, how do people go about programming all this? I mean, obviously you'd be working with a special lighting technician who does all that programming, but how do you decide things like, what are the colors, the right colors? Like, do you come up with all of this stuff in the planning phase, like before you ever hire a technician?
Yes, absolutely. Most of the time I will actually ask bands for primary color choice per song. And then we extrapolate from there. Then we go through production rehearsal. I normally have a GoPro or something set out at front of house so that after the rehearsals, we can look at it and they can comment on what they want to do. Even mid-level touring right now is relying a whole bunch on video, and video is getting cheaper and it's getting more impactful. It's the quickest, easiest way to change up your set for each song to have its impact. And all of it can be controlled by the lighting board now. And that's huge advancements with the LED technology. Just makes everything that much easier to get that impact out of the visual part of your show. At one point, I had a film instructor who was saying to us the reverse about the audio to the visuals that you're making, because he was noticing that we film students weren't paying as much attention to the audio as we should. And the two have to go hand in hand in order to give you the most impact. So that's something I would strongly urge people to talk about. Like, even on the small level, you're going to a club, if you could hand the lighting director a one-pager that just says, here's my set list, here's these songs, can I get this song in red? Can I get this song in purple? Can I get this song in blue? And just say that those are the primary colors that you want, with them to be creative and add in whatever they feel works, because once you get past one verse of the song, you're going to have a pretty good idea of the trajectory of that song. And most lighting guys will be able to pick it up. And then they can just trigger the board manually. Or if you have the ability with a medium or larger size tour, then you're going to take that time in production rehearsals to get each song right.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice that people can just do ahead of time. And this would be a situation, obviously, if they are relying on the in-house guy, right?
Mm-hmm. Which everyone will. I mean, it's going to happen to every artist on their way up, unless they're a mega contest winner or something like that.
I like that so much. So if I were taking notes for myself on this, I'd say, okay, get a banner that looks amazing, that can be very versatile on stage, figure out my colors. What are the colors I want for each song? Get a haze machine, which those are fairly easy to acquire.
And they're rentable. You may, in fact, just ask the venues. Most venues will have a couple of foggers.
Okay. But they're going to call it foggers, but you said don't do fog, it's haze, or is it all the same?
They're going to call it one or the other, because really there's a dry ice fogger, which is the low-lying fog, which is a great effect, but it's still really pricey, and it won't cover you through a full show. If you use that too much, it just looks cheeseball. It's great for one or two tunes throughout your set, but in reality, you do want the hazer, or some people call it /fogger, to pick out all your lighting, and it gives you that much more impact.
Okay, cool. So I'm glad you made that distinction. So the dry ice effect is where it looks like Halloween, right? It's just like fog, like rolling off by your feet.
Low-lying fog that's tumbling over the front of the stage.
Yeah, definitely cool.
Effect. I don't want to dissuade anyone from using it, but use it sparingly. Same with lasers. Same with any sort of special effect thing you're going to do. You kind of want a trajectory through your show to build it up so that you haven't blown the wad right at the beginning. You just
you love that.
you just want to ease it through to build up the spectacular upon the spectacular until the crowd is cheering your name and all that sort of stuff.
Okay, that's a really important thing to bring up too. Don't show all your cards at the beginning of the show.
No.
Okay, how would you stagger this with some of these basic things? So
say it's a band, and the banners don't have to be full color or anything like that, or they could end up being they can even print on any sort of fabric now. So you could even just have your band logo up behind you, which is a classic old school way of doing it. But then with lighting, you can change the colors of that logo if it's white on black. Just putting that out there is another possibility for some folks, because then that's just a soft cloth that you can fold up. There's what we call grommets, or holes in the top that have ties in them that you can tie onto lighting truss or a stage pipe, should you have it in the club behind you. Most places will. Then starting off the show, it's best to have your moodiest pieces up front, and think about your set list in that way. Like, you're creating a show now with your music. So there's a certain narrative that you're trying to aim towards that gets everyone to join on that journey with you through that night to find the secret treasure at the end, which is, in most cases, the encore.
Right. This episode was sponsored by the Superfan System Elite program here at Savvy Musician Academy. If you are looking to scale your existing music business and you're looking to get into advanced digital marketing, such as email marketing, funnels, e-commerce, Facebook ads, and more, and you're looking to build a real profitable online music business, book a call with our team at www.callsma.com. We would love to speak with you for about 30 minutes and see how we can help you. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast for more episodes.